Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Ventura County Master Gardener Speaker Series. This will be the second of a series of virtual talks we have planned until we can resume our in-person meetings around the county. This presentation, Landscaping for Fire, which is very timely, will be about an hour with time for questions, but we ask that everyone stay muted due to the number of people on the call. If you have a question, please use the chat box at the bottom of your screen and we'll get to as many as possible. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dani Brusius, a master gardener since 2005. She is a sustainable landscape expert with training in arboriculture, plant biology, soils, garden pests, and diseases. Dani has more than a decade of training and community service at our helpline desk, and she specializes in reducing and reusing plant materials in the home landscape with a focus on microclimates and hydrozoning for water savings. Again, everyone please mute yourself. And now, Dani, it's all yours.
Hi, okay, we're gonna start here with landscaping for fire, and oh, there we go. Okay, first of all, a little bit on the ACP. You've probably heard this before. I don't know how many of you are master gardeners, but what we need to do is check your trees. We've got a little insect called the Asian citrusillid that transmits a disease to citrus, which is fatal. So once they get this disease, there's no coming back. This disease has taken out more than half of the citrus in Florida at this time. So you really need to check your trees, keep these little guys at bay. This guy right here, this is the immature. This is what you're going to see when you check your trees. You're going to check the new flush growth because this is where they hang out. That's the place that they can eat. You may not see them. They're really small. They look like little Pikachus, if you know what a Pikachu is. But what you are going to see is this waxy tubular stuff. Okay, so this on the leaf, this is what a bunch of them look like. These are the adults. The adult is here with his rear end up in the air. They're a little hard to see. They're really small. You're going to need to go out there with a magnifying lens or a 10-time, like one of those jeweler's lenses. If your tree does get the disease, oh, and these guys move too, so they fly. These guys don't. Once they're an adult, it's really hard to catch them in the act. This is what it looks like when your tree gets the disease. If this was a problem with nutrients or something, it would be even on both sides of the leaf. As if you see here, the modeling's just on one side of the leaf. If you do see this, first of all, don't freak out. It could be from damage on the back of the leaf, so turn it over and look and see if there's damage or not. The fruit is misshapen and sometimes it doesn't ripen all the way. One way to check for them is look for ants. If you see ants going up to a certain part of your tree, that's a sign. They like to farm these guys and for the honeydew. So they'll keep any of the predators away. So check for ants, control the ants, and that'll help control these guys. So what we have is the UCANR site, the ACP site. You can get this off of our UCIPM site too. There's a whole section on management and what to do, and there's maps. And I think the newest map was updated just a few days ago. So you can put in your address or whatever, and it'll show you where they found the insect, and it'll show you where they found the disease. Oh, and it also shows you where they've released the predators. So that's a good, I found these other two pictures on the site. that show you these little guys, these little Pikachus have little holes in them, and that means that they've been parasitized, that the good guys have come in. And if you do live in an area that's close to where they've released the good guys, the beneficial insects, we ask that you don't go crazy and like carpet bomb it with chemicals to kill everything, because you want these guys to do their job. And also here's a little sign of curling on the leaves that has happened because they have been there. So on to fire. Okay, so why am I here? I am terrified of fires. I am, I'm okay with earthquakes and everything else, but fires just, I can't handle fires. We moved to a wildland interface area in 2001. In 2005, we had our first major fire. The houses were saved because the wind stopped. Like I said, I'm terrified of fires. I'm a researcher, so that's what I do. This is from the Woolsey fire. This is my house. That's what it looked like. And here's the little area when the Woolsey fire came through. So how many wildfires does California have each year? Okay, this was before this year. There's 8,000 plus is the normal amount of fires in California, which seems a lot. As of September 7th, there were already 7,600 fires, and our fire season really hasn't started yet. So do you live in a wildland urban interface? And most of this is going to be on the wildland urban interface areas. So I'll call it a WUI, and that's the area where the suburban development meets the developed, undeveloped areas. So it's not if a fire is going to occur, but a fire will occur. In my area, it used to be, it was every 10 years about, but they're becoming more common now. So there's different zones in your wildland interface. And if you look at the Ventura County zone this is from CAL FIRE, you'll see the dark red, but almost all of Ventura County is in the lighter red. And if you live in this area that's not considered dangerous, note that during the Thomas fire, there were places that were houses that were a mile away from the fire that burned down from embers. This is a good site. You can, I'm going to leave up the screen in the end so you can see all these, all the links that I have. But most of this, you can just put it in a search engine. The UCLA map, it has a fire hazard of every building in California. So you can go there and you can type in your address, and it's going to come up with a map that shows, now this is Oak Park, this is where I live. And as you see here, the entirety of Oak Park is very high fire hazard severity zones. And this is probably what your insurance companies are going to go by. And I know that my insurance just got canceled again this year. My latest insurance was 2 years. And hopefully if we work at making our landscapes better, the insurance companies will start insuring again. You know, they can come out and look and see what we're doing. So how can your landscape make a difference? So you need to create a defensible space around your home. And most of this came from the readyforwildfire.org, which is a great site. It's got all the lists of, you know, what to take, what to do. It's got everything you need. So what is a defensible space? So California law requires 100 feet defensible space around the dwellings. Now, most of your homes aren't going to be, you're not going to have 100 feet if you're in an area, if you're in an area like I'm in. So mostly you just worry what's around you. So they break it down into zones, and I'm calling this the new 0 zone. Some people are calling this zone 1. But so far CAL FIRE still goes by the 2 zones, the 30-foot zone and the 100-foot zone. So for now, I'm calling this the 0 zone until they change that. So what they want in this zone is a 5-foot buffer immediately surrounding your home, completely devoid of plants and anything that could burn. And also note that if you have a 4-foot cleared path around your house, it's going to make it easier for the firefighters to navigate. So if you're lucky enough to have gates on both sides of your house, that helps. Here's a picture I took. They were lucky enough to have gates. This is right next to an open space area. I mean, they're right on the open space, and they've decided that that's where they're going to put their storage. You need to keep this open. Okay, so in that 5-foot combustible zone, move the firewood out, the deck furniture. Everything should be AMSA during fire season. And pretty much now everything is fire season almost. We never used to get Santa Anas all year, but we do now. So here's what I used to teach. That you put all your plants that require more water next to the building and under the eaves, because that's the area that retains the most water. We're not doing that anymore. This is the house across the street from me in the Woolsey fire. The fire there started right in this little area, this little tiny area next to the house, and it wasn't a lot of shrubbery or anything. And I'm going to blame it on this little volunteer palm tree, but it was just it was everything that was in there, and it wasn't thick with plants or anything. So what we're used to is plants surrounding our buildings and stuff, and it makes them look prettier. But you know, we kind of have to get used to using hardscape materials around the house. And this was a house that, I believe this was a house that was in the Thomas fire, and this is how they had to redo it, or how they chose to redo it. You don't want to have to burn your house down twice. So know that any plant can burn under the right conditions. Here we have a house that has, this is the front door. And if all this stuff starts on fire, they're not coming out that front door. Are they coming out the garage? No, because the garage is covered with plants too. So just know that, you know, keep the things off of your building. This picture on the left, this isn't fire damage. This is a camellia, which is a pretty fire resistant plant. But this happened a couple years ago when we had it got really hot really fast in the morning, and the plants weren't able to adjust. And this is just from really hot in the morning, when it was from cold to hot. This did this kind of damage. And this picture I took this week, and it shows the park area. All of these plants got pretty toasty in the triple-digit heat that we had this week. This one right here is a native, and if you notice, it looks a lot better than what's going on here. So out of 0 zone onto zone 1, the area that extends 30 feet from buildings. San Diego, it's a 50-foot extension. So here's this picture again. So in zone 1, around your house, you want to remove all dead vegetation, remove dry leaves, clean the gutters. Here, like this and this. And this is a metal roof, but know that it's time to clean your gutters if there's weeds growing out of it. And keep your plants healthy. Remove dead wood. This all here, this is dead wood. This is going to go up like crazy. And this tree here has got all the dead wood too. You know, if we're going to have these plants, we need to take care of them. We need to keep them healthy. So fire brands. Okay, fire brands are They like to find a place to rest and expand. So fill seams and gaps, paint. You don't think of flaking paint, but that's going to be a place where firebrands can land, is in flaking paint. And cobwebs. Cobwebs is another place where they can get stuck in cobwebs. Screening on your vents should be 1/8 or 1/16 inch wire mesh, and the smaller the better. So in zone 1, you want to keep your tree branches at least 10 feet from the other trees. So that's the canopy. Remove anything that hangs over the roof and anything that's within 10 feet of the chimney. So here we have another neighborhood picture. This is an orange tree, and probably not really flammable, and they might say, well, I don't use my chimney, but your neighbors might use their chimney. And I see a lot of dead wood here too. Okay, this was my pear tree. And I say was because even though I don't use the chimney, it was starting to encroach hanging over the house. So I chose to remove it. And on a side note, if you have pear trees, believe the saying that pears are for your heirs, because this was 2 years ago, I removed this tree, and I still have it coming up as volunteers like 30 feet away. So when I removed this tree, all the other plants in the area that were used to this tree started having problems. So I found this triangle shade in the garage and decided to put that up. But now what am I doing? I removed the fire hazard that was there, and I replaced it with another fire hazard that was actually attached to the house. So you're going to remove or prune any flammable plants that are near windows. The windows are going to be the first to bust out and let the fire in. You're going to relocate your wood piles to zone 2, if you have a zone 2, and create separation between items that might catch fire. So here we have these bushes right up against the window, and while you might like them for privacy, the burglars might like them for privacy too. Here's another thing, your hedges, and the cypress are really flammable. And they're flammable when they're not overgrown and have a lot of dead wood inside of them. So note that your hedges really have a lifespan, and anything probably over 12 years old needs to be replaced or removed. This is going to cause a huge hot fire here if this catches. And this has vines growing up it, so it's going to spread. So size matters. I don't know when we started putting these giant trees next to our houses, but this is a coast redwood. And there is a reason that they're called coast redwoods, because they do better on the coast. If you live inland, this is kind of what happens. These are 3 trees right here. The ones on the edge face south, so they're not looking too good. This one looks okay, but if you take out these, this one's going to look like that too. So they're probably best to remove the giant trees from within the 30-foot zone. Oh, and I just said this picture just made me laugh, so I put it in here. So also know that the heat from adjacent structure can start a fire 20 to 30 feet away. So if you're, even without any firebrands, if your neighbor's house is on fire and say it's 20 feet away, they burn so hot that can actually, just the heat can set your house on fire. So, excuse me, consider islands in your landscape design. And that would be separated by non-flammable material like this one, which is all rock mulch. And here we have a lot going on here. Now, this is when you've got a lot of plants together. This is crazy. And also it's a place for, you can get snakes in there, you get rats in there. There's just too much going on here. So now zone 2, where everyone may not have a zone 2, but especially if you're like in an HOA that keeps up the area around, like at my house, this is a good idea for the HOA people. And here's the map again. So in that farther away zone, you're going to cut or mow annual grass down to maximum height of 4 inches. You're going to create horizontal spacing between shrubs and trees. So what is that? Okay, it's the same as in your yard. You want to keep the tree branches on the canopy at least 10 feet from other trees. Now here, this is my neighborhood. We had a tree here and a tree here. This is after the Woolsey fire that were actually, they were touching actually at that time. So what did we do? We planted another tree in between. So this is what it looks like after the fire. And there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that's going to catch everything else on fire. So remove fallen leaves, needles, twigs, cones, small branches, but they may be permitted to a depth of 3 inches. And this is for things like oak trees that like a duff layer. They're going to be healthier with a duff layer. So they're going to you want your trees to be healthy instead of with all the dead wood and stuff on them. So that's why it's permitted, that the stuff layer is permitted up to 3 inches. So you're also going to create vertical spacing between the grass, shrubs, and trees. So for spacing, vertical spacing helps to alleviate the ladder effect. You've got the grasses, you've got the shrub, and then you've got the tree. And then you've got everything on fire. So this is in my neighborhood. I walk past this almost every day, and this drives me crazy. If this is your HOA, please get on them. We've got plants in here. The ground cover is actually, it's Japanese honeysuckle with other stuff. And the honeysuckle is, I'll get to that later, but that is on the list of plants, it's a flammable plant. So you've got this going up these shrubs, up the trees, and then you've got a pine tree here, and the pine tree's flammable, and there's actually a house back there. And this is all HOA controlled area. This isn't the homeowner. So for vertical spacing, there's a formula. You're gonna want 6 foot minimum clearance from the ground to the canopy of your tree. If you want to add shrubs in there, you want 3 times the height of the shrub is the minimum clearance from the canopy of your tree. So if you look here, here's what the 6 foot minimum clearance is. Here's the ladder effect. And if you want that shrub there, it's kind of silly looking, but this is what your tree is going to have to look like. So horizontal spacing. Okay, slopes really matter. For every 10% increase in slope, the length of the flame will double. And I heard the other day, it was one, I don't know how true this is, because it was one of the helicopter guys on the news was saying that fire travels uphill 16 times faster than it does downhill. But don't quote me on that. It was just what the helicopter guy said. So anyway, to figure out your slopes, you've got the rise over the run times 100%. And that's how you get your slope percentage. So mild slopes, you're going to keep the trees 10 feet apart. Shrubs are going to be 2 feet the height of the shrub apart. Mild to moderate slopes, you're going to double that 20 feet, and then you're going to double with the shrubs too. It's going to be 4 times the height of the shrub apart. Moderate to steep slopes, and that's what I have behind my house. And I can tell you, our trees aren't 30 feet apart. And the shrubs aren't 6 times the height apart either. And that's something we really need to work on. We like our privacy, but in fire areas, we really have to work more at making it safe. So plants to avoid. Oh, I'm doing good here. Okay, the conifers, pines, firs, the cypress, the spruce, eucalyptus, palm trees, Japanese honeysuckle, like I said, that's a problem because it gets a dry understory, but there's also something in the sap that makes it very flammable, and ornamental grasses too. So here's my house again. I'm going to show you everything that I've done that's been wrong. Here's this shrub, was probably about 7 years old, and it was right up against the house. So and it's got small leaves on it, so I knew that it had to be removed. This was what actually the interior wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but there's a lot of leaf litter here and a lot of twiggy stuff that'll burn. And this is what it looked like after I removed it. And I even found a little plant back there that I didn't even know I had. So here's shrubs used as hedges. And I'm gonna guess that these are over 12 years old. And I'm gonna guess that there's a lot of dead material inside. And I know that everybody needs their privacy, especially this is on a busy street. So they really want their privacy here. They want to keep the noise down. With something like this, what you could do is put it on a 3-year plan, which is remove every 3rd shrub and replant with a new one. And once a year. So the first year you remove one, and then the next year you remove another one. And after 3 years, you've got a new privacy hedge that isn't quite so flammable. And here's a house that burned in the Woolsey fire. So what do you think burned this house? Yes, we have this palm tree, which has probably, the winds were really bad. So they were probably flaming ninja projectiles that that caught the house on fire. And here we have palm trees, and you see why there's all of this in here. And then you've got, but these have since been removed. I guess the Woolsey fire did scare a lot of people, and they removed this. This is an open land, and this is a volunteer. You really have to watch out for the Washingtonias. They volunteer very easily and they grow very fast. And if nobody's taking care of them, you've got all of this, the dangerous torch projectiles. And here's, if you really love your palm trees, you have to take care of them. And I know this is quite a big deal for this homeowner who really loves his palm trees. And he keeps them trimmed up like this. And this is what you have to do. The last picture, those trees weren't loved. These trees are loved. There's also, in this picture, you can see underneath the eaves where it's stuccoed. If you've got wood underneath your eaves, you might check into getting it stuccoed. This was something that the builder did when they built the houses. So it wasn't an add-on afterwards, but that really helps with fire protection. So now you want to know what plants to choose. And it's going to be more of not what to pick, but there are plants, like I showed you, plants to avoid. But the plants that you, any plant will burn, and especially if it's not kept up, where like I said, the dead wood taking out and stuff like that. So the fire-wise plant characteristics are where tissues contain more moisture, tissues contain low amounts of volatile oils or other flammable chemicals. So if it's got gummy or sticky sap, it's probably it's probably a pretty fire-prone plant. Plants that bend easily with thick leaves, those are good. As far as your trees, the deciduous trees and trees with large leaves. You've got the trees with the smaller leaves, like the pepper trees, they're gonna cause more You're going to have more flame from them. You're going to have more firebrands, and there's going to be more mess underneath, more dead leaves and stuff like that. So use the crush test. If the leaves have a strong odor when crushed, they are probably flammable. So what is this one? This is rosemary. Rosemary is extremely flammable. You don't need a hedge of rosemary. Rosemary is, if you use it for cooking, you can plant a rosemary plant in a pot, or you can keep one rosemary plant is fine for all your cooking needs, and keep it trimmed up. This is a rosemary hedge. So first you've got the flammable plant, and then you've got the understory, and this is going to go up like crazy. So lavender is one that's aromatic, but it can be fire resistant as long as you keep all the dead material out. Plants that provide less fuel by producing less litter or staying small are fire-wise plants. And consider the native plants. So native plants are generally more tolerant to fire and heat, like I showed in that earlier, in the earlier slide I had. This is, what is this? This is what grows over the canyons, the broom. Okay, so this is really nice and really pretty, and it smells nice in the spring, but it comes summer, it turns into just kindling for fire. In the same area, you'll find this is a ceanothus, and it turns out ceanothus are very fire tolerant. And invasive plants are usually the fire spreaders. So you want to keep the native plants because for the ecosystem and the wildlife. And note that when you have invasive species, they choke out the native plants, which provide this ecological better place. So invasive plants also increase the frequency and intensity of fires, and they are also usually the first ones to recover. So here's another picture after the Woolsey fire. This is an area that I walked by hundreds of times and never even knew it was there. Okay, until the fire came through and burned everything out, and we saw what we had. And later on into the season, this is what it looked like. And these are all the invasive plants came in really fast. Mexican feathergrass, invasive. Okay, and here you've got, I think those are the tobacco plants, which are also invasive. No problem coming back. So plants to avoid: the annual grasses, because they turn brown and they're very flammable. The perennial grasses, the arundo, pampas grass, and the Pennisetum cetaceum, okay, which is the green fountain grass. And here we have, they replaced this lawn, and they decided to keep the pampas grass, which has these little torches that are going to go up and start burning the house from there. This is a picture that I took this week of, this is the cetaceum, the Pennisetum cetaceum, and all this grass needs to come up is a pile of leaves. This is in the street. So also plants to avoid would be your herbaceous broadleaf plants such as mustard, European thistle, and fennel. And this shows after the Woolsey fire, the mustard that came back on the hill. And note that this is like, these plants are like 6-7 feet tall. And a few weeks later, this is what it looks like. It's 6 and 7 feet tall dead areas that are going to burn. Woody trees and shrubs. So tamaracks, acacia, and eucalyptus increase the frequency and intensity of fires in riparian areas, and those are areas that are usually pretty wet. So this tamaracks, which is really pretty, the salt cedar, it's been responsible for desert fires that have eliminated species along the Colorado River. And it's also, this plant is going to wreck your soil. I had one of these when we bought the house in the front yard, and we took it out, and I don't think anything grew there for years because it concentrates all the salts into the soil. So for sustainable fire-safe gardens, they conserve water, limit harmful chemicals, avoid invasive species. They grow slowly. The slow growers in your garden are going to be the enduring plants. They're the ones that are going to look better year after year. So you want the slow growers. You might not have the showy stuff right away, but the slow growers are the best. And plants that maintain high levels of moisture in their leaves and stems. So what about mulch? We've been pushing mulch for a long time. And mulch is really valuable. Cools the soil, reduces weeds, controls erosion, prevents compaction, and it looks nice. So there was a study done, research by University of Nevada Cooperative Extension along with the UC Cooperative Extension that evaluated the different mulches by flame height, rate of speed, and temperature. So, and I'm listing these by the worst ones there were. So the shredded rubber burned the hottest and had the highest flame height. So stay away from the shredded rubber. Next was pine needles. So pine needles you don't want to use that as your mulch either. And this is kind of sad. The hair, the shredded stuff, which that's the stuff that stays on your slopes, but it also ignites easily and it has a fast rate of spread. So then getting the other side, the stuff that isn't so bad, was the medium pine bark nuggets, which had a moderate flame height and temperature and a low rate of spread. There was a problem with this in Westlake. I know there were a lot of complaints that it was still smoldering after the fire, but it was smoldering and it wasn't moving. Next was the Tahoe chips, and I had to kind of look into this to see what Tahoe chips were, and actually it was the stuff that came from Tahoe that came right out of the shredder. But this is going to be the stuff that you get from the tree companies that shred up the trees. If you can get that done, it's pretty good. They tested this regular and they tested it with a fire retardant, and the fire retardant only slowed it for 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes it was all the same. And the best one was composted wood chips. So if you can get composted wood chips, that's the best thing to use for your mulch. So within 5 feet of structures, no combustible mulches. Okay, here's everything I did wrong. Okay, so I've got plants against the house. I've got a wooden bench, and I've got the mulch that goes right up to the front of the house. So from 5 feet to 30 feet from structures, you're going to use either the composted bark chips, Tahoe chips, or medium pine bark nuggets. And note that they can all transmit fire, so don't use them in a continuous manner. So this is what I'm working on now. I'm working on breaking up with rocks, breaking up the continuous matter of my bark chips. So this is the part when if it was normal times and we were in a classroom setting, we give you paper and pencil and have you look at your landscape and kind of just see what you have and see what you can get rid of to make it more fire safe, or what you can do. So let's see. Okay, so this is what we can do. This is my rosemary plant, has been trimmed up. This was another plant where I cleaned out the dead wood. This was just done this year. This is now my front yard. You'll note we have a metal bench and rocks. And I note when you order rocks that they go a long way. I now have rocks around the entirety of the house. I'll spread, oh, and this right here, this is a deer grass, and deer grass is on that list of flammable plants. But what I do, this picture was in March, and what I do is in September, I cut the deer grass all the way down to the nubbins. And this is what it looks like in March. So it's not so flammable, and it actually does fine. So you're gonna want an emergency evacuation kit, and the CAL FIRE site that I mentioned earlier has everything that you need. What I learned about evacuation was don't forget the deodorant because stress sweat is real. And the prescription helps too if you're that much of a scaredy cat of fires as I am. Like I said, I can handle a lot, but just working on this presentation with the window open, spelling fire sent me into another place completely. So have your crates ready and know that you might need help. I had a cat that was under the bed that I had to get the neighbor to help me get out. And that was, and I still got peed on. So the fire's coming. Now what do? So go through your home evacuation checklist, which is on readyforwildfire.org. I highlighted a few things here that I never would have thought of that I didn't do. Oh, and also keep an eye on your emergency services. Ventura County has VC Emergency that's going to keep you up to date. If you're like me, I follow a couple of scanner guys on Twitter, and they were really helpful because when the Woolsey fire came through, everybody was talking about the Hope fire, and the TV and nobody was saying anything about the Woolsey fire. There's a Ventura County scanner guy that listens to the fire and police scanners and reports, and he was saying that there was a fire at Rockadine. And from the 2005 fire, I knew that comes right through the canyon to my house. So if the winds were not going to stop, I was packing up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the actual evacuation wasn't until 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, like I said, don't follow your next door or places like that where people are just saying all kinds of crazy things and nobody really knows what's going on. So what you're going to want to do is shut your windows and doors, leaving them unlocked. My house was locked up tight. Leave your lights on. My house was dark. Outside, connect garden hoses. The house across the street from me that caught fire didn't have a garden hose. So nobody, before the fire department showed up, nobody was able to help put that out. Don't leave your sprinklers on because it's going to mess with the water pressure. Have a ladder available and place it at the corner of your house. Now, I have ladders, and I've been told that the burglars are going to use them to break into your second stories. So they were all chained up and locked to the fence. So they were no help for firefighters. Seal attic and ground vents with pre-cut plywood. So that's something you can do ahead of time, is make little plywood covers for your vents. Because usually that's one place that the fire's going to enter, the firebrands, once they get in your attic. Oh, and check on your neighbors and make sure that they're preparing to leave. So while I was gone early, I have a neighbor that slept through all the commotion. And when he woke up, the house across the street was on fire. And he went to try and help put out the fire. And he was met with no hose. So he loaded up buckets and tried to put it out with the buckets. And later he actually had a heart attack. He's fine now, but he actually had a heart attack. So check on your neighbors, especially your elderly neighbors. So when should you leave? You should leave as soon as evacuation is recommended. And I know a lot of people say, I want to stay back and I want to hose down those little spots on the mulch. And that's another thing. Well, I'll get to that. But you really need to leave right away. There's congestion. You want the firefighters to be able to get in. When I was leaving early, they were bringing in the big earth moving equipment, and you don't want to block that from coming in. So don't wait to be ordered to leave. Leave early. So especially the firefighters, their first job is going to be to save lives. And then their second job is going to be to save your house. So if your neighbor is crazy on his roof, he's stuck on his roof and they have to go and save him because the fire's coming and your house is burning, you're not going to be happy with your neighbor because the fire department had to save him instead of saving your house. So should you water before you go? Yes and no. Well irrigated plants have a better chance of fending off fire, but if you haven't maintained an acceptable watering schedule, any water that you put on your garden when the fire's coming is not going to help. The water's going to be evaporated in the wind and the heat. And note that wetting down bark and mulch could be beneficial. And we usually have, we have notice, at least we have notice before the Santa Anas come. And I have an area in my yard that is, that doesn't get any supplemental irrigation, but it does have bark. And if I hear the Santa Anas are coming, I'll start watering it down days ahead of time. And hopefully, I tend to think that helps. So even with your best efforts, we were looking for a house. My husband and I were looking for a house. We looked for a house for 2 years. We couldn't agree on anything. He liked everything up high with the view. And like I said, I'm terrified of fires. This was the house that we almost agreed on. It was a brick house. He said, this brick house is never gonna burn. And my thought on that was, well, if we have an earthquake, the brick house is gonna fall down. But it turns out in the Thomas fire, this house that had the view, that was the brick house, that was the perfect house, did burn. And if you see, I'm not sure what all these plants were here, but I know that over here by the garage, those were citrus trees, and those burned just as bad as everything else in the area. So, and I know that because I went and I looked for the citrus psyllids. So if you have problems or questions, not just fire, but any kind of garden questions, you can contact us at our helpline. We're at mgventura@ucdavis.edu. You can't call us because we're not in the office now. So all of the helpline that we're doing is strictly by email. You can send us pictures. If you send us pictures, send us lots of pictures. Send us pictures of your problem, send us far away pictures, close-up pictures, pictures of the soil around where you're having the problem and stuff like that. And we don't always have the answers, but we do our best to help. So that is it. 5,000 slides that you've seen. And I'll leave this resource up now, and I'll see if I can get some, some chat. Okay, our master. Okay. Okay, do we have any questions?
Doesn't look like it unless somebody wants to shout out now.
Yeah, any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So we're rebuilding and the house is built and now it's landscape time. And because you have to rebuild and you have to get all of your soils graded, and they bring in new soil. And now, I mean, basically it's what we would call dead soil. There's no organisms in it at all. So what do we add to it to have it be better soil instead of just a very clay? That's we call it construction soil. So what should we add to it, the soil?
I would add compost. And it's going to take a while for you to upgrade your soil if you've got that. And you know what, if you've got really bad soil, the native plants work really good on that. I'm on a cut and fill where they take all the topsoil. So I'm on the cut part. When you're on a slope, they take all the topsoil and they move it down to the next area to fill it in. And basically my topsoil is gone, but my native plants do fine. But it's going to take a lot of time, you know, but compost is probably the best thing that you can add, is work in the compost.
Mm-hmm. Maybe rice hulls. Rice hulls would be an amendment.
I'd have to research that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea on that. Just a decent compost. If you get a compost from someplace that you trust, in quantity. I know a lot of the time it's hard to get, you know, they have weed seeds and you know, a lot of them come from yard waste, and you don't know exactly what's in there. But if it's broken down, if it's composted, I would work that in over time.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Oh, look at this. We're 8 minutes early. I guess I talked fast enough. So if that's it, I guess we're done here, right? Oh, Nicole.
Dani, we have a question
Okay.
from Linda. Linda, you want to just speak it?
Oh, wait.
Oh, she's asking where you get specialty mulch.
Oh, we can't tell you that. you
Dani,
Yeah.
stop sharing your screen. Then we can see everybody.
Oh, stop sharing your screen. Okay, I thought I put that up for people that wanted the.
There's everybody. There's everybody.
Thank you. Hi, it's Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about mulch. My home is one of the homes that the backyard burned during the Woolsey fire.
Okay.
And there were sheriff and police in my yard and some of the neighbors' yards that were using hoses because there weren't enough firefighters to go around.
Right.
And they said, because my neighbor met up with one of them, that the mulch was the biggest problem because it was blowing against the house and blowing all over.
And
So
that's why, yeah.
Mulch.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking, you know, you mentioned a couple that you thought were less flammable.
Right.
I've had dirt because I'm afraid to put any kind of mulch there.
Then, you know, and
Home Depot, or where do I get those kind of mulch?
those, if we told you, we'd have to kill you.
No, you can go to American Soil or Peach Hill Soils. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, it's we don't recommend places, but like I said, this is the, you can look this up online. It was on the combustibility of landscape mulches. And if you're really afraid of the mulches catching fire, and I know the Woolsey fire scared a lot of us, is just put down rock mulch. I know a lot of your plants, like the if you've got the desert plants, they don't like mulch anyway. But yeah, but as far as the flame height, like I said, you can look this up online. The mulches used in residential landscapes from the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension. And I'm sorry we don't have this to hand out because I do have a bunch of them here. It'll kind of, like I said, they grade them by the height of the flame. And if you, like I said, in Westlake and North Ranch, they had all of those, the mulch it's moldered for days, and a lot of people were really afraid of it. So, yeah.
Well, I even had a bag of soil that burned that was leaned up against the side of my house.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
couldn't
Okay,
get it
said
to
Annie?
stop burning until we emptied it out over the cement and flooded it.
Yep. That's but anything will burn. You just want to give, you know, our firefighters have gotten real, as long as we have enough firefighters, you know, with all these fires going right now, I guess we're kind of short. As long as they've gotten really good at fighting these fires, the last two, the Thomas and the Woolsey fire, they're right on top of things. And as long as we can help them with our landscapes, they'll do better.
Thank you.
So is there anything else? Any other questions?
I just want to say real quick that thank you, Dani.
Yes, thank you so much.
And also, this will be up on our YouTube channel. It has to be edited by a person who's on maternity leave right now, so it'll be a little while. So I'm sorry about that, but it will be up eventually.
All right, for
Okay.
that, we'll end the meeting.